Good evening and welcome to tonight's council meeting for Tuesday, September 9th. I just would like to let everybody know to silence your electronic devices. We're very lean in here tonight. It's just council and staff. I will start the meeting with our land acknowledgement. As we gather here today, let us be reminded that the community in which we live, work, and play is situated on traditional, unceded Algonquin First Nation territory. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Anishinaabe people and express our respect and support for their rich history and culture. Could I get a call to order, please?
Councillor Hinton sends his regrets. All other members of council are present.
Thank you. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. The recommended motion is that the agenda be approved as presented. Could I get a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor Tennant, seconded by Councillor Comley. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest and general nature thereof can be made at any point through the meeting by notifying the clerk. Item number 5 is the approval of the minutes. Could I get the recommended motion, please?
That the council minutes dated August 26, 2025 be accepted as presented.
Thank you. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Kavanaugh, seconded by Councillor Sakaspina. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Item number 6 is consent report. The recommended motion, please.
That council received the consent report dated September 9th, 2025.
Thank you. Can I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Comley, seconded by Councillor Atkinson. Any discussion on the consent report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Moves us right along to bylaws, of which we have 2. The first bylaw to amend traffic and parking bylaw. Can I get the recommended motion, please?
That bylaw 67-2025 to amend traffic and parking bylaw 46-2003, private parking bylaw 7007-2004, and to repeal bylaws 35-2011 and 56-2011 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. Mover. Moved by Councillor Atkinson, seconded by Councillor Sakaspina. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Second bylaw is a part lot control. Could I have the recommended motion, please?
That bylaws 68-2025, 69-2025, and 70-2025, part law controls for 165, 167, 171, 173, 174, and 176 O'Donovan Drive be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. Moved by Deputy Mayor Tennant, second by Councillor Kavanaugh. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. That finishes bylaws, moves us quickly along to announcements, of which I have 2 official announcements. September 21st through 27th is National Forest Week, and National Tree Day is on the Wednesday of National Forest Week, which is September 25th. Carleton Place is very proud of our tree canopy, and we do put a lot of effort in through our Rec and Culture Department and our Public Works Department to keep our trees up and add new trees as we can every year. And we encourage all of our citizens through various means to do the same. And so it's nice to recognize both National Forest Week and National Tree Day. As always, I put it out to our fellow councillors to add other announcements. I always look over at Councillor Kavanaugh first. I know that she'll have a few. Or Councillor Sakaspina.
Okay, we'll just not forget that the Lanark County Take Back the Night is September 18th at 5 p.m. Meeting at the Town Hall Square at 5 p.m. The vigil begins at 5:30. March will begin after that down Bridge Street, and I do believe they're going to have a bus at Market Square because they're going to be joining another march in Ottawa. First annual Porch Fest is Saturday, September 13th, and the town has a Porch Fest site where you can see where all the entertainment is and who's playing. And lastly, Lanark County Harvest Festival, Beckwith Park, this Sunday, September 14th, 11 to 4, free admission, and Carlton Place is the host.
Thank you, Councillor Sakaspina and Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Just a reminder that Saturday down at Riverside Park from 12 to 8 is the Ukrainian Festival returning for its second year. So I encourage everyone to go out, free admission. It's a celebration of Ukrainian music, dancing. There'll be workshops, crafts, exhibits. Definitely something to go and check out and celebrate. September 20th, we have another movie in the park at Carlton Junction. It's 7 p.m. Go down early. There'll be snacks and things like that. And they're showing the new Lilo and Stitch. My kids made me remember that it's the new one. I had to mention that. And just another note that September 21st is World Alzheimer's Day. And that's a day that we globally recognize the Alzheimer's as a disease, try and raise awareness and challenge stigma around Alzheimer's and other dementias. So that's something to be acknowledged as well. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has anything to announce? Seeing not, I will just quickly go over a couple of events on Saturday. Councillor Sakaspina had mentioned Take Back the Night with Lanark County Interval House. We had our Dragon Boat Festival on Saturday, which was wildly attended. I think 750 paddlers. We had tons of vendors and lots of people down watching, and they were raising funds for Lanark County Interval House. Aaron Lee, who we all know, was there to speak and spoke eloquently with regards to what they do. And also, there was a charity event at the Legion called Rock the Pantry, and it was a bunch of bands played and local bands. And I think they were raising funds for the Lanark County Food Bank, and they raised almost $12,000, which is crazy, and well done to both the organizers of that event, but also the organizing committee and everybody that helped out with the Dragon Boat Festival. It was just a great weekend, lots going on in Carlton Place. There were ball tournaments and just so much going on. So kudos to those community-driven events to help raise money for charities here locally that we all know that folks need so much. And with that, we will move along to the confirmatory bylaw and the recommended motion, please.
That bylaw 71-2025, confirmation of council proceedings for September 9th, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Moved by Councillor Kavanaugh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Tennant. All in favor? Anybody opposed? That's carried. And we are moving to adjournment. Recommended motion is that the meeting be adjourned at 6:08 p.m. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Atkinson, seconded by Councillor Comley. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Normally we would turn this over to Councillor Hinton, but he is away this week. And so it goes back to Councillor Comley for Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mayor Randall. Welcome to Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, September 9th. Call to order. Mark Hinton is still away and all other members are here. First up is the approval of the agenda, and the suggested motion is that the agenda be accepted as presented. I get a mover. Councillor Kavanaugh, Councillor Atkinson. Any discussion? All in favor? And that is carried. Declaration of pecuniary or conflict of interest in general nature thereof can be made now or at any time throughout the meeting. Does anyone have anything to declare? All right. Minutes to be approved and received. The suggested motion is that the Committee of Whole minutes dated August 26, 2025 be accepted as presented. Can I get a mover for that? Mayor Randall and Councillor Sakaspina. Any discussion on the minutes? Being none, all in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Okay, we have one delegation tonight. We have Nancy Neal, our friend from Watson and Associates, here tonight talking about the 2025 development fees and charges review that was just completed. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am going to share my screen. I just want to make sure that You can see that because we have a presentation to go through tonight. Can someone give me a thumbs up that you're able to see that? Perfect. Thank you so much. So we have been working over the last few months pretty diligently with some of your staff members to go through a review of your development fees and charges. What that has entailed is really looking, because you have received funding through the federal government's Housing Accelerator Fund, that was funding put in place to help municipalities increase housing supply and affordability, looking at specific initiatives and incentives that we may be able to, or you may be able to put in place to help actually get certain types of developments and more development happening. Certainly, there's specific housing types that are missing or that you want to focus on more that we'll talk about in the slides to come. But really, there's two parts to this phase that we're undertaking. The first phase is what we've done for tonight, and that's reviewing and creating sort of an administrative framework of all your fees and charges, as well as looking at those proposed incentives framework. Phase 2 will actually take place later this fall, where a review of all of the specific development-related fees and charges, including things like your building permit fees, engineering fees, inspection fees, planning fees, as well as cash in lieu of parking and parkland, will be reviewed to see if there are ways that you can differentiate some of those fees and charges to help incentivize certain types of developments to try and spur on what you have, what your goals are for things such as nonprofit housing and other types of units that are considered the missing middle. So those are really the two phases that need to take place, that you've committed to do under this half funding program, but really tonight is just about phase 1. So the objectives of phase one was really to create that administrative framework that governs all of your development-related fees and charges, as well as to evaluate those to ensure they're clear, transparent, predetermined, so that it's someone coming in trying to develop any type of development understands what is owing, when it's owing, and understands what the funding is going towards helping for construction of different infrastructure in the town. We also were looking for opportunities to consolidate or streamline some of the fee structures if possible, and then propose incentives to prioritize the various housing forms for your consideration and explore the possibility of establishing penalties or even disincentives for other inactivity of developments that don't align with your community housing needs. The approach and methodology that we've gone through is we first undertook a review of your existing fees, identified the statutory legislation that each of them fell under, the cost recovery and timing of the imposition and collection of those throughout the development phase. And the goal there was to identify, number one, if there was any duplication of fees, if there was a lack of clarity as to when they were applicable or what they were for, and also look at those opportunities to consolidate or simplify them. We also undertook a survey of different types of financial incentives in the development process that other municipalities across the province are offering to developments. And then looked at the legislative requirements that may limit what you can incent and focused in on the areas where you could potentially provide incentives. And that's something that we'll be showing you within the slides here as considerations to go forward, to also help stay within the legislative compliance, but also to help ease the administration of putting incentives in place for your staff. So the fees and charges review looked at 4 main types of legislation where fees and charges are being imposed. The Planning Act is where we find parkland, parking, cash in lieu, as well as your planning application fees. The Building Code Act is obviously where the statutory act that you can impose building permit fees for. Recently, this summer, you passed your development charge bylaw under the Development Charges Act, and then there's also fees and charges under the Municipal Act that you're imposing. They include fire inspection fees, engineering and other inspection fees, as well as specific capital or connection charges for certain types of services. When we looked at the development process, we really broke it down into 9 different phases that really takes someone from coming in with an interest to apply for an application or pre-application stage, right through to getting agreements executed, constructing those municipal infrastructures, pulling the building permits, constructing the homes and businesses until we get people occupying, and what happens post occupation or occupying with assumption of all of those agreements, and try to map out really where the fees and charges fall and are applicable so that someone coming in to develop understands that through these different phases, when they will be responsible to pay for certain types of fees and charges. And really, this next table summarizes for those main categories where fees and charges are in place, where they would be expected to be paying for the various amounts that would be owing throughout the planning process. With the majority of those costs really being either owing at the time you're executing or registering an agreement such as a subdivision or site plan, and then of course, many of them at the time the building permit is being issued. Summary of those findings, we did find that you do not have a duplication of any cost recovery across all the fee categories, which is great news. There's also, you do employ a structure and detailed framework that aligns with the principles of cost recovery within all of the different legislation that you need to stay within. Again, most of your charges are updated annually and encased in bylaws. Some, like the development charge bylaw, are not updated annually. They're done on a more infrequent basis because there's quite a process involved in those. Opportunities for improvement, we've looked at exploring options to simplify the structures, excluding those in the development charge bylaw because they were just put in place so recently. Improve access to the fee information, as well as to improve the administration or challenges with legacy capital and connection charge bylaws that you've had in place up to a few decades now for some of them. So some of the incentives and key considerations for those. There are limitations under the Municipal Act that prohibits bonusing. However, there are exceptions to that that include any lands that are within a community improvement plan. Now, luckily, your municipality as a whole is within a community improvement plan. So it does give you a little bit more leeway as to where you could actually provide some incentives and not where it's not considered bonusing. The Municipal Act does also provide you the power to make grants subject to those limitations. And then the Planning Act provides council and boards with the discretion to reduce or waive planning application fees where you feel it is unreasonable to actually impose a full charge or fee. Your existing financial incentives that are in place already, as you know, there are a lot of statutory exemptions from the development charge payments for certain types of developments, as well as similar exemptions for parkland dedication or cash in lieu of parkland. There's also incentives for affordable housing through your CIP for brownfield developments, facade and streetscape improvements, accessibility, and affordable housing, all of which were approved in your October 11th, 2022 Community Improvement Plan. There are development charge rebates for up to 100% of the DCs for affordable rental units. As well, one of the things we're looking at is ensuring that the definition in your CIP is updated in the future to match the same definition of affordable rental units in the Development Charges Act for consistency. So that is something that is coming out of the recommendations of the report. Your building permit fee rebates exist up to 100% of the permit fees for new or improved affordable rental units. As well, you have a tax increment equivalent rebate or tier, which provides a 50% rebate against property tax increases for 10 years, where there's a minimum of 6 affordable units in a development, and it's only related to the residential portion. So if it's a mixed-use development and there's non-residential components, they don't get that reduction. The accessible unit rebate, there is up to 5,000 for renovations that create legal accessory units, which excludes short stay accommodations such as Airbnbs and that sort of bed and breakfast type units. And there's an accessibility co-application 50% rebate up to a maximum of $5,000 for eligible accessibility improvements that meet your town criteria. So those are all in place already. In addition to that, there's some indirect incentives that are provided. So the use of the development permitting system that you utilize streamlines and expedites a lot of the development approval processes, which results in cost savings on the developer side. Providing initial pre-consultation meetings, right now you do that at no cost to most developers. Where a lot of municipalities are charging for those pre-consultation meetings, you're already providing an incentive there not to charge that. And you're collecting your parkland dedication or cash in lieu at the time you're executing your subdivision agreements, rather than at the building permit stage, which the Planning Act allows you to. And of course, by the time you get to the or the building permit stage, your land values are typically higher because now you have service land, where prior to that, at the subdivision stage, quite often you don't have all of the servicing in place. So the land values that the developers are paying on are at a much lower value. So those are all sort of indirect incentives already that you provide. Other types of financial incentives that we've looked at across Ontario, including a number of municipalities listed there, but that's not all of them we've looked at, include grants, waivers, rebates, reductions or discounts, and or deferrals of some types of fees and charges. As well, there's special tax rates out there. So the province recently introduced the affordable housing subclass, which if passed by the upper tier in municipalities, allows for a property tax reduction of up to 35% for any properties that fall into that subclass. Now, for that, there needs to be a bylaw passed by the end of September, and that is something that town staff have been working with county staff on that will be coming forward later this month. So that new tax class should be, if passed by council, something that's in place for the 2026 year to help again with those affordable housing units getting a lower tax than what they would otherwise get. As I noted at the onset, there are a priority of housing forms that working with staff, we understand that you are looking for to incentivize throughout the municipality to really help get these types of housing forms built and more units built. Those include nonprofit housing units, those affordable rental housing units, as well as some of the missing middle housing. So you have a lot of low density, but you don't have as much of the semi-detached and townhouse units, especially low-rise ones. So sort of bungalow towns and bungalow semi-detached units that we often see are needed for seniors that start having mobility issues, or people who don't want to have that vertical living, but smaller units that are more ground-based. As well, accessible senior housing and mixed-use developments that are within a 15-minute neighborhood. So these have sort of been ranked, working with staff as to where we want to provide incentives for your consideration to use up as well some of that half funding that's been received to ensure that you can still continue to pay for everything, but use some of that money to help pay for some of the incentives. For nonprofit housing, again, we've looked at the same definition that's in the Development Charges Act to define that. We're recommending that you offer a capital grant up to $25,000 per unit, which really aligns with Lanark County's existing program. Provide a waiver or cancellation of the planning and engineering and inspection fees for nonprofit housing developments, as well as to continue to maintain the existing CIP rebate on the building permit fees that you provide, and update that tier program with taxes to extend it from 10 years to 15 years, again, to match what the county's term is already offering. And then work with the county, as I mentioned, to make sure that that new tax class for affordable rental housing, which a lot is also in the nonprofit housing. A lot of times it's both affordable and nonprofit, but to make sure that subclass, it takes effect in January. And then update your CIP definitions to align the development charge and CIP definitions for nonprofit. For affordable rental housing, again, looking at offering up to $25,000 per unit to align with the county's existing program. So that's matching funds that we're recommending, maintaining your existing CIP rebate for building permit fees, implementing a 50% discount on planning and engineering fees, and then extending that tier program again from 10 to 15 years to match the counties and getting that new tax class in place, as well as alignment for definitions between the CIP and the DC. So both for the affordable and nonprofit housing, we're looking at trying to really push those two types of housing forms with the most incentives that you could offer. That missing middle of the semi-detached and townhouse, those low sort of bungalow type smaller units, we're recommending reducing your building permit fees by up to 30% for the semi-detached bungalows units that have up to 1,500 square feet. And then for those bungalow townhouse units that are up to 1,400 square feet, a reduction of those fees as well. And that will be reviewed in more detail and will come back as part of the phase 2 review of the specific fees and charges there. For the intensified mixed-use developments yep, I thought I skipped a slide. Within the 15-minute neighborhoods, what's really important there when you've got the mixed use is the amount of parking that's required. And so we're recommending that you look at providing up to a 50% reduction in the amount of parking that's needed for those 15-minute neighborhoods so that people can walk and cycle to a lot of the amenities that they need in town and don't have to rely on vehicles as much. And so they're using alternative transit modes then to move around their community. So a reduction of that, again, will be determined and detailed more in phase 2 of the project. For accessible seniors residential units, we're looking at a stackable grant of up to $5,000 for incorporating universal or barrier-free or accessible designs within the units. And then that would be a grant that would be issued upon completion or final inspection of the development units to make sure that those accessible barrier-free elements are actually there. And to provide those developments receiving the incentives under the nonprofit housing or affordable or missing middle incentive categories only. So that, again, it's stacking on top of those other incentives and gives yet one more type of incentive for those units when it's related to seniors units. For next steps really to implement this, there's an established structured annual intake process that would help to allocate the grants and fees and rebates to the different types of housing forms that we're suggesting. There would be an allocation of funding that would be required to be approved and set aside for these. And you would want to, through the application processes, have an intake period with a closing date for applications so staff could review those and then prioritize all of those to ensure that your nonprofit are the first types of units to get funding, the affordable rental housing, et cetera, as you move down that list until the funds are used up. Obviously maintaining that tier program, but extending it out to the 15 years is something that you want to communicate as eligibility requirements to prospective developers so that they know that that is something during the pre-consultation meetings that will help on the longer term as well to develop their units. And then coordinating, of course, with the county to pass that bylaw in the end of this month for 2026 implementation is something we still recommend staff stay closely in line with county staff. And then to allocate an additional $500,000 of funding from the HAF money that's been received to provide the incentives that are necessary and that we've recommended here. And then to also allocate another $100,000 of the HAF funding to undertake the full phase 2 review of fees and charges to complete the holistic program that you have committed to do. That's my presentation. I know it's a lot of information, but if there's any questions that I can help with right now, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Nancy. There was a lot of information. Are there any questions from council at this time for Nancy? No? And is this report available to the public or is it posted anywhere? But it will be. So it'll be posted on the website. Not seeing any questions at this point, but this
Okay.
project is still ongoing, so there may be more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the suggested motion is that the council receive as information the 2025 development fees and charges review as prepared by Watson and Associates Economics Limited. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Kavanaugh and Councillor Atkinson?
Sure.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
We have a lot of time, but that's just kind of check the record.
That is carried. We have some committee, board, and external updates to receive. So the suggested motion is that the following minutes be received. The BIA board from April 14th and June 16th, 2025. The library board minutes from June 18th, 2025, and the accessibility advisory committee from September 2nd, 2025. Can I get a mover for that? Mayor Randall and Councillor Kavanaugh, any discussion on the communications? All in favor? And that is carried. We also have an information listing, the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, the August 2025 newsletter. We need a motion to accept that. So the suggested motion is that the information listing dated September 9th be received. Mover for that, Deputy Mayor Tennant and Mayor Randall. All in favor? And that is carried. We do have a closed session this evening. We have 3 different matters on the agenda. One is an update on the community planning matter. We have an employment matter to discuss and a legal matter. So the suggested motion is that the committee move into closed session at 6:34 p.m. to discuss matters subject to the Municipal Act, Section 239, Section 2, Proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, item 1. Labor relations or employee negotiations, item 2. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, item 3. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, item 3. A position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, items 1 and 3. And that the following persons be permitted to participate in the meeting: Diane Smithson, CAO, for all items; Stacy Blair, clerk, for all items; Nikki Dwyer, the Director of Development Services, for item 1; and Teresa McConkey, our treasurer, for item 2. I get a mover for that, Councillor Kavanaugh and Councillor Atkinson. All in favor of moving into closed session. So we will be back after discussing those items. All right, welcome back, everyone. We will have a rise and report from our CEO.
So for the 3 items discussed in closed session, staff direction was provided.
And that brings us to the end of our committee meeting for this evening. The last remaining motion is that the meeting be adjourned at 8:00 PM. Can I get a mover for that? Counselor Kavanaugh? No one else wants to go home? Oh, Counselor Sekaspina. Perfect. All in favor of adjournment? And that's it. We'll be back here in a couple of weeks. Thank you.